On this day in history, November 14th, 1770, James Bruce discovers what he believes to be the source of the Nile. Included in the following is an excerpt from the 1944 edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica, going over the history of the explorer. James Bruce, born 1730, died 1794, Scottish explorer in Africa, was born at Kinnaird House, Stirlingshire, on December 14th, 1730. He was educated at Harrow and Edinburgh University, and began to study for the bar, but he married a wine merchant's daughter and went into his father-in-law's business. His wife died in October 1754 within 9 months of marriage, and Bruce then traveled in Portugal and Spain. The examination of Oriental messages at the Escorial led him to the study of Arabic and determined his future career. In 1758, his father's death placed him in possession of the estate of Kinnaird. On the outbreak of war with Spain in 1762, he submitted to the British government a plan for an attack on Ferrol, which was not adopted, but which led him to his appointment as British consul at Algiers, with a commission to study the ancient ruins in that country. In August 1765, a successor in the consulate having arrived, Bruce began his exploration of the Roman ruins in Barbary. Having examined many ruins in eastern Algeria, he traveled from Tunis to Tripoli, and eventually reached Crete and Syria, visiting Palmyra and Baalbek. In June 1768, he arrived at Alexandria, having resolved to endeavor to discover the source of the Nile, which he believed to rise in Abyssinia. After visiting Thebes, he crossed the desert to Kosseir, where he embarked in the dress of a Turkish sailor. He reached Jeddah in May 1769, and after some stay in Arabia, he recrossed the Red Sea and landed at Massawa, then in possession of the Turks, on September 19th. He reached Gondar, then the capital of Abyssinia, on February 14th, 1770. After 2 years in Abyssinia, on November 14th, 1770, he reached the long-sought source of the Blue Nile. Though admitting that the White Nile was the larger stream, Bruce claimed that the Blue Nile was the Nile of the ancients, and that he was thus the discoverer of its source. The claim, however, was not well founded. Setting out from Gondar in December 1771, Bruce made his way, in spite of the enormous difficulties, by Sennaar to Nubia, being the first to trace the Blue Nile to its confluence with the White Nile. On November 29, 1772, he reached Aswan. Bruce returned to Cairo in January 1773, and in March arrived in France, where he was welcomed by Buffon and other savants. He went to London in 1774, but offended by the incredulity with which his story was received, retired to his home at Kinnaird. In 1790, he published Travels to Discover the Source of the Nile in the years 1768 to 73, in 5 octavo volumes, lavishly illustrated. Bruce died on April 27, 1794. He wrote an autobiography, part of which is printed in editions of his travels published in 1805 and in 1813, and accompanied by a biographical notice by the editor, Alexander Murray. The best edition of the travels is the third, 1813. Of abridgments, the best is that of Major, afterwards Sir Francis Head, the author of a well-informed Life of Bruce, 1830. The best account of Bruce's travels in Barbary is contained in Sir R. Lambert Playfair's Travels in the Footsteps of Bruce, 1877.